Canto 32. Summary. The canto opens with Dante staring at Beatrice, drinking his fill to quench the thirst of the past 10 years. Beatrice had died in 1290. The virtues chide him for looking too fixedly at the beauty he has longed to see. He turns to the virtues and is blinded for a moment. When he regains his sight, his eyes having been sharpened by the theological virtues, he beholds the great company as they turn and face the sun. The beautiful lady who drew Dante through the water, along with the pilgrim and Statius, follows the griffin as he pulls the chariot through the wood to a particular tree. The 7 nymphs circle round the tree and murmur, "Adam," chiding him for the original act of disobedience. This is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It is completely bare, stripped of every leaf in allusion to the curse. The ladies praise the griffin, symbolizing Jesus, the second Adam, for not tasting of that tree, as did the first. Responding to their praise, the griffin cries, "So the seed of righteousness is preserved," quoting Jesus' own words at his baptism in the Jordan River. In other words, righteousness is preserved through Jesus' own obedience. The griffin takes a cross pole from the chariot, a pole on which a banner might have hung, brings it to the tree, and binds it to the trunk. Immediately the tree swells with new growth, and every branch is filled with new leaves. A medieval legend held that the cross on which Jesus was crucified was made from the wood of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Thus not only did the second Adam obey where the first Adam failed, he did so on the very same tree. When the cross pole, standing in for the cross itself, is reunited with the tree made barren by the curse resulting from Adam's sin, the tree is brought again to life. At this moment the pilgrim falls asleep, as if at rest in the work of the sun. When he awakes after a bright splendor rent the veil of sleep, a nod to the temple curtain torn in two at the crucifixion of Jesus, he does not see Beatrice and is suddenly in doubt. But the beautiful lady directs his gaze to where Beatrice is sitting underneath the tree. The griffin and the great company now ascend, leaving behind the cart and the 7 nymphs, who surround Beatrice, the cart, and the tree. Beatrice assures Dante that he will indeed be saved, and will be a citizen with her of the city of God, of that Rome whereof Christ is a Roman. Therefore, for the good of everyone who will read his poem, Dante must pay attention to a new vision about to unfold. Suddenly an eagle drops from the sky and alights in the branches of the tree, rocking it back and forth. Then a fox jumps onto the cart, but Beatrice is able to chase it away, scolding it for its errors. Then the eagle descends into the cart, scattering its feathers all over. A voice breaks from heaven, bemoaning the burden the cart now carries. The ground beneath the cart opens, and a dragon appears, who pierces the floor of the cart with its tail and breaks part of it away, wandering off into the forest. The remnant of the cart covers itself over with more of the eagle's feathers. As soon as it is done so, however, it grows 7 monstrous heads, 3 on the pole and 4 in each corner. The 3 have horns like an ox, but the 4 each have only 1 horn in front. Suddenly a wanton whore appears on top of the cart, with the giant standing at her side. As the whore turns her eyes toward the pilgrim, the giant fiercely whips her and drags her and the cart together deeper into the forest, where Dante cannot see it. Here we are given another and a much more obscure vision. The common interpretation is this. The eagle is the Roman Empire. The eagle descending into the tree and shaking it violently represents the various persecutions against the early Christians. The fox, always a symbol of fraud, that jumps into the cart represents the early heresies that the church herself, symbolized by Beatrice, is able to deal with. Then the eagle descends into the cart, pointing to the Roman Empire's embrace of Christianity as the official religion of the state, covering the church in its own feathers. It is this union of civil and ecclesial power that the voice from heaven bemoans. The dragon that comes from beneath the cart, dragging a piece of it away, is likely Muhammad, who was born into the church but broke away to form a new religion, Islam. Following this, the church and the state become even more entwined and inseparable, growing monstrous. The 7 heads with the horns evoke the beast of Revelation as well as the 7 deadly sins. The appearance of the whore and the giant bring the vision up to contemporary affairs and even beyond 1300, the fictional date of the poem. The whore represents the corrupted papacy, and the giant represents the kings of France. In particular, the struggle between Philip the Fair and Boniface VIII, see Canto 20, is seen in the horsewhipping, the removal of the papacy to Avignon under Clement V, which didn't happen until 1309, is seen in the giant dragging the cart deeper into the forest away from the pilgrim's site. These verses are extremely opaque, and interpreters can only make an educated guess as to what all of the details Dante includes actually mean, but this is the traditional reading. 32. A vision. My eyes were so very fixed and intent on quenching my thirst of the past 10 years that my other senses were wholly spent. On this side and on that my eyes had walls of indifference, so did the holy smile draw them to itself with the ancient net. When with energy my face was turned round my left-hand side by those goddesses, for I heard them all say, "Too fixedly," and that disposition in those whose eyes have been recently blinded by the sun, made me to be somewhat without vision. But when my sight reformed the lesser, I mean lesser compared with the greater object from which I was removed by force, I saw the glorious army wheel round upon their right arm, and thus return with the sun and the 7 flames in its face. As soldiers retreat underneath their shields, to save themselves and wheel with their standard before they all can change their direction, that militia of the celestial realm, which went before, passed us by completely before the chariot turned its crosspole. Then the ladies each returned their wheels. The griffin advanced the blessed burden, yet such that no feathers were lost by him. The beautiful lady who had drawn me through the stream in Statius and I followed the wheel whose orbit made the lesser arc. And so, passing through the high wood, empty through her fault who had believed the serpent, our steps were tempered by angelic notes. Perhaps a shaft loosed 3 times would cover the amount of space through which we had moved, once again, when Beatrice descended. I understood all to murmur, "Adam." Then they encircled a tree stripped of leaves and of all other fronds from every limb. Its branches, that spread outward so much more the higher up it is, would be admired by the Indos in their woods for its height. "Blessed are you, Griffin, that with your beak tear nothing off this tree, sweet to the taste, for the belly is ill twisted therewith." In this way the others cried out around that sturdy tree, and the dual animal, so the seed of righteousness, is preserved. And he turned the cross-pole that he brought, pulled it to the foot of that widowed trunk, and left it bound to that from which it came. Just as our trees, when the greater light sets, mix together with that constellation next to shine beneath the celestial fish, make themselves swollen, and then afterwards each renews its color before the sun, joins his chargers behind another star. The tree renewed itself in spreading hues, less than roses yet deeper than violets, where before the branches had been so bare. I did not understand it, for the hymn is not sung here that those people then sang, nor did I last through much of their music. If I could sketch how the merciless eyes fell asleep while listening to Syrinx, the eyes whose vigil-keeping cost so dear, as a painter who paints from a model, I could draw how I myself fell asleep, but he must be one who feigns sleeping well. Therefore I pass on to when I awoke, and say that a bright splendor rent the veil of sleep, and a call, "Rise up, what do you?" When brought to see the budding apple tree, which makes the angels eager for its fruit, and sets perpetual feasts in heaven, Peter and John and James were overcome, and afterwards awakened at the word, by whom greater slumbers have been broken. They noticed that their company had been diminished by Moses and Elijah, as well as their master's transfigured robe. In the same way did I return and see that pious one standing over me, who, before, guided my steps along the stream. All in doubt, I said, "Where is Beatrice?" And she, "Behold her under the new leaves, sitting down upon the root of the tree. See the company that circles round her, the others ascend after the griffin, with a much sweeter and more profound song." And if her words were more widely diffused, I know not, for then she was in my eyes, who kept me from attending to others. She was sitting alone on the true earth, left there as a guardian of the cart, which I had seen tied to the twofold beast. The 7 nymphs closed her in a circle, with those lights in their hands that stay secure against the aquilon and the ouster. Here but briefly will you be a woodsman, and without end a citizen with me of that Rome whereof Christ is a Roman. Therefore, for the good of the world that lives, keep your eyes on the cart, and what you see, returning back there, make sure you write down. Thus Beatrice, and I, who was wholly faithful at the feet of her commandments, yielded my mind and eyes to where she willed. Never did fire fall with such swift motion from within a dense cloud when it rains down from the enclosure that is most remote, as I beheld the bird of Jove descend downward through the tree, breaking off the bark, as well as the blossoms and the new leaves. And it struck the cart with all of its force, from which it pitched like a ship in a storm, tossed by waves, now to starboard, now to port. Then I saw pouncing into the cradle of the triumphal vehicle a fox, which was seeming empty of all good food. But scolding it for its filthy mistakes, my lady turned it away in such flight as its bones without flesh would tolerate. Then I saw the eagle descending down from where it was before into the ark of the cart, leaving it plumed like itself. And as escapes a heart that is saddened, such a voice came from heaven and said, "Oh, my little ship, how ill you are weighed down." Then it seemed to me the earth opened up between both wheels, and I saw a dragon come out, fixing its tail up through the cart. And as a wasp withdraws its own stinger, drawing it to itself the malignant tail, it took part of the floor and wandered off. That which remained, as living earth covers itself with grass, so too with plumage, gifted perhaps with kind and sound intent. It recovered itself, and recovered both wheels, and the pole in such a time as a sigh holds the mouth open the longest. Thus transformed, the holy edifice placed outside upon its different sections, heads, 3 on the pole and 1 in each corner. The first 3 had horns just like the oxen, but the 4 had only 1 horn in front. A matching monster has not yet been seen. As if a fortress on a high mountain, a loose whore, sitting securely on it, appeared to me with eyes darting around. And as if she would not be thieved from him, I saw a giant standing at her side, and they were sometimes kissing together. But because she turned me her lustful and wandering eye, that fierce paramour horsewhipped her from her head down to her soles. Then, full of suspicion and beastly wrath, he loosed the monster, and into the wood he dragged it, so far that the wood alone shielded me from the whore and the strange beast.